the 7 principles to help senior Java developers land international jobs. Today I have a special guest here, which is Wellington. Wellington, this is the Challenger Developer Mentorship. How are you, Wellington?
I'm good, Rafael. Thanks. How about you? Is
I'm good.
everything okay?
I'm good. Thank you so much. We also have Fsnick. Fsnick did the Challenger Developer course. How are you, Fsnick?
Good, thank you. I'm just following another sessions of yours, so happy to
Awesome.
be.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, Fsnick. And today, let's talk about those principles. So, most developers think that only technical knowledge is enough to go abroad and to land high-paying jobs, but it's not the truth. We need to go beyond that. We need to work on our soft skills as well. We need to be good technically, yes, but usually that's the minimum they ask. And I would even go further and say that to have a strong mindset counts a lot more in your favor rather than being the best developer in the world. So your attitude counts a lot as well to land a job abroad. And those are the principles that we're going to discuss here. Like it's not enough to know technical concepts and to know lots of frameworks. And we're going to be discussing what are those points that are important. So those are the 7 proven principles that myself, MNT Wellington, Fsnick, they use those concepts to land good jobs internationally. So let's start talking about mindset because I know this is very underrated and I don't see anyone talking about mindset for developers. And I know that developers don't like the word very much. And I also didn't like too much when I didn't know what was that. But when I started understanding that, then it made sense because your mindset is basically your operation system. So it's how your mind works. And I'll tell you, if you have the wrong mindset, you're going to fail. Like what most developers do. They kind of decide to get a job abroad, and then what happens? Life happens and they give up. So it doesn't really matter. You can be the best developer in the world. If you don't have a strong mindset, you will fail. There's no way out of that. So, and in other words, mindset is also your psychology. What is your attitude towards feedback? What is your attitude towards commitment? What is your attitude towards responsibility? Like if you are a developer who runs from responsibility, who runs from commitment, I assure you that you're gonna fail, right? So mindset is very important, and I know it's very underrated, and developers don't like to hear about mindset. But I'm telling you that this is very important because to start off, if you have a weak mindset, probably you wouldn't be even listening to me because if you have this a weak mindset, you are too arrogant, right? So anyway, but if you are here in this call, it means that you want to land a good job internationally. And if it's your case that you have a weak mindset, that's fine because I also had a weak mindset many years ago, and that's okay. That's something you can improve. And how can you improve that? By learning, right? So let's explore then some points. So one of the stronger foundations of the Challenger Developer method is consistency. And I talk about that so much. But obviously, consistency without strategy is useless, right? You can be very consistent, send 1,000 CVs and say, oh man, I'm so consistent. I'm sending so many CVs, but I get no result. Obviously, it's the wrong strategy. So, and I see many developers making this mistake. They do things on their own. They think that they are rocking and they try things on their own for a lot of time. They refuse getting help. And then they take years to get the results. And sometimes even the sad thing happens, they give up on their dreams. And I'm tired of seeing that. I've seen that too much. I myself, I took lots of mentorships throughout my career, and that helped me a lot to grow faster. Why? Because mentors who achieved what I want, they tell me, hey, Rafael, this is the way. Go here. Don't waste your time. So that's very important. And if the developer has a wrong mindset, they won't even take action. They'll do nothing. And the worst kind of developers, like the most difficult developers to deal with, are the victim developers. And those developers, they blame everything. They blame managers, they blame the government, they blame their education, they blame everything but themselves. So it's another kind of mindset that if you have the victim mindset, like either you start working on it, and if you don't want to work on the victim mindset, the Challenger Developer Mentorship is not for you. The Challenger Developer Method is not for you, and you can leave this video right now. So if you want to change from the victim mindset to the challenger mindset, then you're welcome. Otherwise, you can go away. Okay? So, and what are those principles? The most important principles is that we have to make an effort to show up even when motivation drops. And that's easier said than done, because there are days that we have to fight our own emotions, and sometimes we don't feel like doing it, right? But one of the secrets of success is showing up. Even if you're demotivated, if you feel frustrated, because the thing is that when you show up, you're gonna feel the energy, right? And I know some days it's gonna be difficult, but there's not such a thing like something from nothing. And the other great thing about consistency is that small daily progress will create the compound effect. Oh, what is that, Rafael? So basically, our brain is formed by neurons, and our neurons are connected to each other. Basically, the more you know, the easier it is to learn new things. So I tell you that if you're consistent on your learning and strategic, no one can beat you. The problem is that most developers, and I understand, like nowadays it's a big challenge to know what to study. Nowadays, it's a big challenge to know where to start from, because there are so many things, and sometimes it's even difficult to decide what is your next career step. And by the way, this is something that we do in the Challenger Developer Mentorship, and I can help you to get clarity, because I know this is hard. And you have to have long-term discipline as well. Because remember, your career is not a sprint. Your career is a long-term commitment. It's a marathon. There are naive developers who think, oh, in a couple of months, I will change my whole life. And that's not the truth, right? And well, sometimes it happens, but it's obviously it's a journey, right? So repetition builds credibility, because if you have a consistent behavior, you also create trust from other people. And reliability beats brilliance. So if people relies on you to solve problems and to solve production problems, you become important for your job. And one of the most powerful ways to build trust is to be predictable, is to say something and then you do that thing. The worst thing you can do is to say something and then you do something else. Then you lose trust. Then your manager doesn't trust you, your coworkers don't trust you, other people don't trust you. But when you develop this reputation that when you say something, you do it, you become someone who is trusted. And this helps you in your career, this helps you to stand out more quickly. And also, your habits, it's a lot better to develop systems. I would say systems is kind of the same as habits, because habits, in the end, they are better than bursts of energy. That's another common mistake from developers because they have this burst of energy and then they stop doing the work. So we also have Wellington here, and Wellington had an amazing growth by applying the Challenger Developer Mentorship principles. And can you talk a little bit about your results and how consistency is important, Wellington?
Yep. So when I started the mentorship, it took me 3 months to land a international job in London. And I can see clearly those concepts that pick up, show up, even motivation drops. For many times, I wanted run away for an interview, or I wanted run away for the mentorship, for many challenges that I faced. But even the when the motivation was low, I tried and I faced it even in my not best days. And it was crucial, important to keep the consistency. I also applied the small daily progress, and I needed at the beginning of the mentorship during throughout those 3 months I needed to be a bit, how can I put this, a bit crazy with daily progress. I was doing tasks, I can't put like this tasks, but I was doing small progress every day, Monday to Monday,
Nice.
and it paid off at the end. I landed the job. And discipline, I think it is something we need to work daily. I've seen in my development that some weeks the discipline is low, some weeks I complete all of the tasks I was planned to do. And repetition builds credibility. There's a saying here which is walk the talk. I like that. And I see that in the persons as well. The most trustable persons in the companies, they are person that when they say something, they really do that.
Yeah,
They
very
not
important.
just say. And and the mentorship also helped me with the habits. I created a new habit on my life, which is always listening audiobooks. And I'm on I just finished the third book, and I'm building a stronger mindset, and
Yeah,
I see things differently with that. So that's my 2 cents contribution
very
for this
good.
section.
Very good. It was excellent. Thank you so much, Wellington. And there is also identity level. So there are many things here. So let's talk quickly about them. So the first thing, you need to see yourself as a global professional. And how can you do that? Well, we can start taking small steps. If you're watching a course, for example, in your local language, start watching a course in English. Start learning the technical jargons and start getting to know the global references for Java. Like you can start getting to know the Java champions, right? And that will help you to, have this mindset that you are a capable global developer. And the ownership principle is very important. So, and what is that? So basically the ownership principle is basically your capability of starting a story, owning that, and finishing it. Like basically, from the beginning to the end, you are the owner of the story, of this task, and you are responsible to deliver that, right? And if you need to contact other teams, if you need to talk to other people, you're gonna get it done. You don't wait for others to tell you what to do. You basically take action before people ask you. So the ownership mindset is very important for the global market. Proactive problem solving. So if you have an opportunity, like if you see an opportunity to use a specific tool, like try suggesting to your team that, okay, like this tool will help us to prevent problems, right? So comfort with ambiguity. The more senior we get, the more we deal with ambiguity. And this is hard, right? You need to make decisions, you need to understand the problem and solve it in the best way. So this is something that is highly valuable for the international market. Long-term career thinking, right? Because, like I said, in our career, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So that's why it's important that we develop systems, routines, where we can develop ourselves strategically. Responsibility over hierarchy, and this has lots of points here. So basically, it's like in short words, summarizing that is a mindset of ownership, right? So, for example, if someone asks, oh, there is this thing to do, like you can take ownership, you can take initiative and say, hey, I will investigate that. And we could even propose a solution. Or if you see that something might break in production, you flag it. And obviously, like when we say that no one owns this yet, obviously you need to see what are the priorities of the tasks in your job. It's not only because no one owns the task. So obviously we need to always analyze the context. And as the more senior we get, the more we need to think about trade-offs, right? So because there are trade-offs in every decision you make, right? And this is another concept of ownership. So it's basically that you're gonna follow up, you're gonna follow through the thing you own until it's resolved. Like you don't simply let it go, the task. So you follow up until you finish it, until you make sure it's all correct, until you make sure that's all working, until you make sure that's all done. And this signals seniority and trustworthiness. And why the international companies care so much about that? So remote and distributed teams cannot scale with micromanagement, right? So they want a developer with the sense of ownership who can solve problems on their own. And obviously, like, it doesn't mean that that you have to solve problems on your own. You can ask for help, but the key point is that you own the task and you're gonna figure out. You're gonna figure out, and if you know someone who can help you, and obviously, like we don't know everything. So we might lack some knowledge about DevOps, some specific knowledge about, an internal framework, whatever, or some specific knowledge about the business. And if we lack this knowledge, a senior attitude is not to wait for a miracle, is to ask, because your time is expensive. So you can't waste your time. So if you see that you need to talk to someone, send a message to the person. If you need to set a meeting, create a meeting. And sometimes, and my advice is that you only create a meeting if it's strictly necessary. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes a simple message would solve the problem. Sometimes an email could solve the problem. So, but international teams, they like developers who see problems early, who act without permission. Obviously, this depends on the context. Be careful here. Like act without permission when appropriate, right? So escalate risks clearly. So if you see, oh, there's a risk here, I want to deliver my task in the end of the sprint, you let everyone know. Closed loops, end to end. This is very connected to ownership, right? So you open a loop, you close it. For example, if you give the idea of using a new technology and you said that you're going to investigate that, after you did the investigation, you close the loop, you say, hey, okay, this technology is good or this technology is not good. You close the loop. And hierarchy also slows distributed teams. And responsibility accelerates them. Why? Because if you're too dependent, like if you're doing anything in your job, you need to ask for confirmation for people, then it becomes, very difficult for you to accelerate and to go faster, right? Obviously, oh, Rafael, does it mean that I can't ask? You can ask, but most of your job is about making decisions on your own. And sometimes you don't need to ask for decisions for everything. So you need to be very careful on what you ask and what you should not ask. This is a skill of a senior developer. Learn what you can ask and what you shouldn't ask. Very important senior developer skill. And important clarification. So responsibility over hierarchy does not mean, obviously, disrespecting leadership. You never do that. And by the way, don't disrespect anyone, right? So in general, right? Ignoring decisions, going rogue, obviously, like he wouldn't go rogue. Overstepping authority, yeah, obviously, like those are very obvious things. Yeah, you don't do those things. But obviously, like you act in the company best interest, communicating transparently, so that you diminish chances of being micromanaged. Because I know how annoying this is. Like to be micromanaged is one of the worst things when you're working because you feel that you're not trusted. And okay, some from time to time this will happen. Mainly if you're new in the company, if people don't know you. But ideally, we don't like over micromanagement, right? Micromanagement is stressful. And own outcome as well. This is part of ownership, right? So if you developed a feature and there are bugs, you own them. It's ownership. Or if you developed a feature and everyone talks good about it, you own that. You deserve the credits. And respecting decisions after voicing concerns. So this is a very important mindset for senior developers because sometimes your idea won't be chosen. Sometimes someone else's idea will be chosen. And that's okay. But the mindset that's important to have is that sometimes you won't agree with the decision, but you will commit. That's very important because you're not there so that your ideas are the chosen ones. You are there to help the company achieve their goals. That's your goal, right? So, like it's important also to diminish the bias. Obviously, bias, we're gonna always have that, but it's important that we are self-conscious about that to not judge people because of a bias, right? And for example, in interviews, I know that's against the law to ask where the person is from. Where the person is from. You can't ask that because they are biased. And sometimes we judge a person because of whatever. And we have to fight constantly against that to not have this bias. So it doesn't mean, oh, Rafael, does that mean that I can trust everyone? Obviously, like you have to use your own judgment. So you have to keep your guards up, but also give a chance to people, right? And confidence without arrogance. This is very important because there are a lot of people who are who have the false confidence because they are arrogant. And I've seen that in my career. People who used to humiliate others in public, they weren't even that good technically, but they were very difficult people to work with. Very arrogant. And I didn't like to see people being humiliated in public. That's ridiculous. But the person who do that, they'll have problems in their careers because, for example, I wouldn't refer such a person for a job. An arrogant person, I wouldn't. Even if this person is the best technically, I wouldn't like to work with this person. So, your thoughts about ownership, Wellington? How do you see that in the company you're working for.
When I hear this word ownership, I like to think about that as if I were the owner of the company. So I try to take the task and think, if I were the owner, what would I do and how would I do? So that helps me to chat with anyone I need to chat with. That helped me to think in a macro way as well and see the task as an opportunity to do something, not to solve the specific task, but to improve something else in the company or in the process. So I see ownership as that, and I also see that I see many examples actually of many people who are powerful in the company and they are very humble, and I admire that, and I try to follow the same example as well. Of course, there are people who they are arrogant, but and when I face some situation with people like that, I just move on and try not don't do not take it personally and try to mirror myself in the good examples.
Very good.
That's that's my approach.
Very good. Thank you so much for giving your insights, Wellington. And like you said, yeah, it's very useful to think like you're an owner because then you're gonna do everything in your control to get things done. Obviously, there is a caveat here because to think as an owner, obviously you won't do the strategic decisions as an owner would do. The caveat is that to think like an owner, own your space as a developer, right? Okay, like
Yeah.
sometimes as a developer you can go a bit beyond, but the strategic decisions, the very important decisions, the big picture decisions, obviously won't be made by a software engineer. It will be made by the CEO. So this is, well, CEO, CTO, whatever. But the point is that your thought process is correct. Like think like an owner, but an owner of your job. I mean, the work in the context of a developer job, if you see something that you can go beyond, it's okay. But it's like it's always this common sense, right? Always context, based on context. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when I say sometimes I go beyond, what I mean is, let's suppose I have a task to do and I see that I can transform it in something else. So I never do that by myself. I always find a way of communicate that for the team and bring for the team the decision, make it clearly for everyone.
Perfect. Yes, that's definitely your responsibility as a developer. Yeah. So, yeah, so basically have the ownership in the context of being a developer. And don't, and another very important lesson is to not step over other people's toes. I mean, like you don't want to do the job of a business owner, for example. Like you have to have ownership on delivering
Mhm.
your developer responsibilities. That's the point. And if you need to go beyond, if you see something wrong in other areas, you can communicate, but you won't do the job of someone else. Basically,
I
in a company, yeah, I know that there are different, that's why one thing you have to figure out, one thing that we all have to think is about context. This is very dependable on the culture and context of the company. It depends a lot. Because yes, if you're working for a startup, sometimes you might have to do the work of a business owner. Sometimes you're gonna have to do the work of an architect. So this depends on the context. It's a very important detail.
Yeah, well pointed.
Yeah, because like you don't want to step over other people's toes. I mean, if you sometimes in some contexts, in some situations, it looks bad if you do the job of someone else. They won't like it. But like I said, depends on the culture of the company. So you have to be always aware, okay, like how things work here. Okay, I'm understanding here. Okay, so developers do their jobs. They don't do like much else in the business. They just understand how things work. That's very important. So another point is business impact over code. So it's important that we measure results consistently. And usually the companies, they do that on planning meetings. They, like after every quarter, they see how many stories were delivered and they count how many complex points the team was able to deliver. And this is easy to do in Jira, for example. And there are other tools that we can do that, but we can track metrics over time easily on Jira. And usually the Scrum Master will help improve the system of how you deliver the stories. And another very important job of a Scrum Master is to understand what is the velocity of the team. And after some sprints, they can figure out how many complex points the team is able to take. And the more you deliver stories and features consistently, the more trust you have with higher management and things get easier like that. So always try to understand the business impact. Don't be too narrowed on the code. Like always make an effort to try to understand the big picture of the business. Otherwise, if you just code and you don't know exactly what's going on, like it harms your career. The more you know about the business, the more valuable you become for the company, right? Do you have anything to add on this one, Wellington?
Yeah, as a developer, most of the times we don't consider business over code. We do the opposite, code over business,
Yeah,
right? But I was thinking about that in the last quarter when I was looking at the tasks that I've done in the Jira, and I could see how many tasks I did, how long I took, and how the feature improved for one number to another. And yeah, we code, we tend to, most of the times we value more the code than the business, but at the end, what matter is the business, isn't it?
yeah. In the end, we are coding to solve business problems.
Solve business problems. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's a very important thing to remember as developers. And we need to know deep about, fundamentals. And for example, data structures. Structure is very important, big annotation, system design, like algorithms as well. So all of those skills are very important, like continuous learning. This is another very important mindset. Don't have the naive thought that you can learn things in like very quickly, in one day or in 1 week. Well, sometimes you can learn things in 1 week, but only if you know the fundamentals very well. For example, if you are very good with data structures, big O notation, algorithms, and object-oriented programming. So if you know those concepts very well, I'm pretty much sure that you can master a programming language pretty quickly. But if you don't have the fundamentals, it's gonna take a long time because then you're gonna become a tool learner, and that doesn't put you in a very good spot, right? So the JVM, it's important to know it. Obviously, you don't need to go crazy on the JVM, don't need to know everything about the JVM, but it's important to know the fundamentals. And as you understand the fundamentals, revisit them from time to time to remember. And like you have to have the long-term mastery mindset as well, because real mastery takes time. It's for the long term. It's not for the short term. And all of those concepts are mandatory nowadays for interviews, right? So you need to know about those principles. You need to practice them consistently so that when you are in the interview, you become less nervous. Because what makes us nervous usually is lack of preparation. So, yeah, so don't underestimate the fundamentals and don't think that all algorithms, those are things that I learned in my college. I don't want to do them anymore. I'm not saying, oh, go crazy on algorithms, solve all of them. I'm not saying that, but at the same time, I'm saying that it's important to be used to solve at least the easy and the medium algorithms for interviews. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to pass in interviews. It's going to be difficult to demonstrate your communication skills and so on. What are your thoughts about that, Wellington?
Well, those are very important topics. So at the beginning of the mentorship, I needed a really nice strategy to, how can I put this, to practice and to go towards my goal. In term, I needed to review and review data structure a lot, big O notation, system design, algorithms, object-oriented programming, and I needed to practice that a lot. And everyone need to practice that a lot to arrive at the interview less uncomfortable, and also need to practice mock interview, which we're gonna talk about soon. So yeah, and I the difference that I see in the market is who has all this those fundamentals clearly in their mind. They usually are quicker in a way. How can I put this? For example, it takes there's a phrase on the book One Rule. It takes 1 decade to become one overnight success.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah,
That's
you need
very
to
powerful.
know, yeah, you need to have a very strong fundamentals to learn something new quickly. I still learning, I still studying that, and I still practicing. And for me at the moment, it's continuous learning.
Yeah. It's a very important mantra to have, which is never stop learning. And one of the biggest hacks to never stop growing is to be humble forever. I know that sometimes it's
Um,
easier said than done, but we have to remind ourselves that we don't know everything constantly. We don't know everything.
for sure, and we don't practice each fundamentals of these topics every day. So we need to constantly review that to keep it warm in our minds.
Exactly. Very good. Thank you so much for your insights, Wellington. So if you guys don't know Wellington, yeah, go ahead.
So no, no problem. Carry on.
Yeah, if you guys don't know Wellington, so Wellington did the Challenger Developer Mentorship, and he landed a job in London, earning 7 times his previous salary. Yeah, so he had
Yeah,
exponential
it's a
growth.
gamer change.
Yeah, yeah, and like Wellington also improved a lot his English. Like he's giving a talk.
Yeah, at the beginning, I wasn't able to express myself.
Yeah, like Wellington improved so much his English very quickly. Very good. So that's the power of consistency. Like the knowledge compounds, you become a lot better very quickly. So, and that's why the sprint mindset doesn't work. Because if Wellington had the mindset of being a sprinter, he would do a very intensive course. Like he would study like 24 hours for 1 week from Monday to Monday, and then he wouldn't learn because
I
our learning.
tried that. Oh, sorry, carry on.
Sorry, you tried that?
You tried that many years and it didn't work.
It doesn't
and
work.
I was spinning a wheel for many years. I just move on. The mentorship was a game change in my life.
Yeah, because the thing is that, like, to be successful and to really achieve our goals, we need to create systems in our lives. So it becomes repeatable. And the things that you repeat lots of times, you master it. And there's no other way. Like a magical course of a magical 1 week course, like I assure you, you won't become fluent in English like that. I assure you, for sure. So it's very naive to think that a miracle 1 week course will solve the problems. It doesn't work like that. Like it's a lot. Like I say so many times, the secret for success is strategy plus consistency equals success. This is the formula. Like there's no mistake. If you follow this formula, strategy plus consistency, I'm pretty much sure it's gonna be equal success. And I know that sometimes it's difficult to have this strategy, but that's something that we also do in the mentorship. Like we have the Challenger Planner meeting where I help you to have clarity of your next 5 year steps, and you have also a plan, right? So yeah, it's important to have clarity. The third point is systems and architecture thinking. So this is something very important for senior developers. Sometimes, like even more when you work with microservices, it's important that you create your design, your technical architecture, and you learn the technique of discussing that with your team, talking about the pros and cons, and you like from time to time you also evolve systems with your knowledge because probably the system you developed many years ago, like with the knowledge, like after some years you have more knowledge and you can create something more robust. And the more experience you have, the more knowledge you have from past systems, and like you avoid the mistakes you had before. And it's also important to have the mindset of documenting architectural decisions. And sometimes it's very useful to have a meeting with your team and explain the trade-offs, explain why of this technology, explain the complexity, explain everything you figure out. Do you have anything to add on this one, Wellington? Did you have a situation where you had to think about the architecture?
Uh, Let me think. Not just me, but what I see in the market is when we have some new architecture to define, or even an old architecture to refactor, people always choose the approach of documentate everything because in a few years' time it could be revisited and no one knows why the decision was made. So people like to documentate all the decisions and it becomes easy to identify why the software changed the flow or why it was made like that. And yeah, and it is also a group decision. What I see usually is it also happens with me when I need to change some library or add some library or add some new flow that add a new framework. I can make a POC, a proof of concept, and or someone else also does something like that, make a diagram, and we also present to the team, and the team make the decision together. And it's a good practice to always have a design to to show the flow in a simpler way, documentate the decision, learn with the past systems, and also documentate why it was made like that and
Yeah.
why it is what it is. Yeah, I think the architecture is systems and architecture think is a group of it's a work of many hands, and documentation is crucial for the for
I,
a good health of the in terms of system.
yeah, very important to document your decisions and talk to the team. So yeah, that's definitely a good practice.
Yeah, for sure. I worked in a company some time ago where there's no much documentation and no one knew what the system was like it was.
Yeah.
There's no way to identify why. Yeah, it's very important. Very important. And international companies loves documentation.
That's true. Yeah, it's very important. Very good. And another point that's very important for senior developers is the point of production and reliability. So you have to have the discipline of being on call. So also to have the responsibility of doing that post-mortem follow-ups. So when there is a big issue, a bug, anything in production that, you know, some developer had to pay the price being on call, be waking up at 3 a.m. Like if that happens, it's important to have these post-mortem follow-ups to understand what exactly happened so that you prevent that to happen the next time. So those meetings, they are very useful so that the team takes ownership of this issue and they create, some kind of story, some kind of mechanism to prevent that in the future. Because if something unexpected happened and nobody takes any action to prevent that in the future, it's gonna keep on happening. And developers, whoever is on call, they will be always waking up, and they probably have to, work on weekends many hours, right? And that's not the idea. The idea is that you are on call and you don't need to do anything because the system is working fine. Observability as a habit, so you need to think of ways to trace what happens in the microservices and monitor your microservices, prevent repeat incidents, and how can you do that? Like observability is a great part from that. Good code also helps, but observability for microservices is even more important. And operational excellence over heroes. So the worst thing we can have in a company is the hero developer, because if the hero developer gets sick, the whole project will be ruined, right? So it's a lot better to create systems, to create operational excellence, so that when a problem happens, you know what you do. And there are some techniques like creating playbooks, creating some documentations, things that are repeatable so that anyone can do it if necessary. Do you have anything to add on this one, Wellington?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. When something bad happens in production, we developers need to be always available and follow up the bugs end to end, as we talked before. And for observability and operational excellence, I think logs is a very good approach for that. At least I've seen that logs helps a lot with observability. I think that's it. That's a very interesting. And once you reach this point of be seen as a developer trustable that you can call in any situation, we are in a good spot in the company.
Exactly, yeah. Like if you are a developer who solves production problems, you are in a very good spot. Like you are the developer who will be basically very likely the next one to be promoted.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you are a developer who knows about the business, who solves difficult production problems, who knows how to prevent those major issues, who takes ownership, a developer who has good technical knowledge, and also not a developer who is, don't need to be crazily good politically, but just the basics of politics. I mean, just being a person who is kind to others, that helps a lot. Like if you have all of those things, I'm pretty much sure you're gonna be the next one to be promoted. So those things are important. This is a sign of ownership. Okay, so the fifth point is about global communication. And this is very important because that helps you to show yourself in the right way in the company, right? So write clearly every day. So when you're communicating to someone else, don't overcomplicate on your message. Try to be as concise as possible, and at the same time, explain your point very, very clearly. The more you do that, the better communicator you become. And when I talk about communication, it's not only about writing or speaking, it's about how to organize your ideas in the simplest way so that other people can understand you and you can get what you want. And when you are speaking to someone else, another very important point is that communication is bidirectional. So if you don't understand something, you ask. Because sometimes people don't have this mindset, oh, I have to explain something in an easy way. Sometimes they're going to explain things in a very complicated way. And it's okay for us to ask for clarification, depending on the context, obviously. Always analyze the context, but it's very important to have this mindset that you need to understand the other person as well. It's not only you sending the message. So explain decisions repeatedly, and this is also a sign of ownership, right? So if you make a decision to use a technology, explain how is the progress, explain what are the challenges, what are the blockers, how is the progress exactly, and async updates consistently. So sometimes you are working on an important task, and obviously, I will say again, this will depend on the context and the culture of the company, but some companies want you to communicate, you know, as much as possible about how is your story going and so on. English improvement as a routine, like we discussed here. So Wellington created the habit of listening to audiobooks. That's a very wise decision because besides helping him to improve his pronunciation, his English communication skills, he's also fortifying his mindset. And this is something very important. And I'll tell you, if you have a weak mindset, you're gonna fail for sure. That's 100% sure. Because I can't tell you how many developers tried their journey to get international jobs, but then because of their weak mindset, they give up very quickly. They give up, they disengage, they do nothing. So they become like they will never, it's very unlikely that they will ever achieve their goals of landing international jobs. Probably they will never get it unless they change their mindset. But if you have the arrogant mindset or the mindset of, oh, I don't care, like you won't get it. There is a price for everything. There are trade-offs, right? Something
Yeah,
for,
it's a marathon, isn't it?
it's a marathon, exactly. And you need to be a challenger. You need to have the challenger mindset. Like the challenger mindset is the Wellington's mindset. So Wellington, he will go for it. He's committed. He's doing the work. He shows up. No matter what, he shows up. He's the first one to show up in the mentorship and the last one to leave. And he's been consistent since the beginning of the mentorship. So Wellington is a guy who says something, he accomplished things. Like he says, okay, I'm gonna do that. And he does. That's a very important mindset. And by doing that, he earns my trust. He earns the trust of people in his job. Because they will know every time Wellington says something, he's gonna do it. So you build a reputation. This is very powerful. And the victim developer, he does the opposite. He says, "Oh, I'm gonna do that," and then he does the opposite. And what happens? It breaks my trust. It breaks my trust, and it breaks the trust of. Imagine if a developer says something in their job, and then they do something else. It could be a case of being fired. Like, I don't want to work with a developer who I don't trust. I mean, who break my trust.
Yeah, it's uncertain,
It's
right?
uncertain,
You don't
exactly.
know.
It's unpredictable. How can you work with an
Yeah,
unpredictable developer? It's
yeah,
very difficult.
tough situation. Yeah, it's very
It's a
difficult.
tough situation. And the international companies, they know that. They don't want unpredictable developers. They want consistent developers. Developers who say one thing and they are consistent with what they said. This is the concept of walking your talk. And the
Exactly.
developers who break your trust, who break trust in their jobs, forget it. They won't get a job abroad. Unless they work on that, unless they break this arrogance and they work on their mindset, it's very likely they'll never get there. So, because there's not such a thing like something from nothing.
Yeah,
I can tell you how much hard Wellington worked to get the international job because he understands he has a challenger mindset. He doesn't have the victim mindset. He has a mindset that, man, you gotta do it. You gotta pay the price, right?
exactly right. Communication, I feel that it is a it's a subject we need always to work on. And when we bring communication in a context of global and with multicultural, and some culture express themselves differently among them. So what I mean is, in Brazil we have a way to express ourselves, and in other countries the same, United States, India, and etc. So a small hack for communication is when you write and someone doesn't understand you, try to be more specific, try to ask more, try to ask different, but don't say you agree and you understand if you don't,
Yeah.
because it's not nice for you, not nice for us do things like that. So and communication right clearly every day. I see in the chat and the people behaves when they are speaking and writing, they are more directly, and I try to reduce the amount of words and to be more directly as well. And sometimes they say something without saying, and that point it's kind of I need to ask a few times to make sure if I get the point, and explain decisions. Yes, in each task, when I finish each task, I try to make a. We have the habit of present our solution, so we always explain our decisions, and we go through our commits and whatever involved, and explain what's been done. So it's something very day to day in my day. And in terms of when we are working on tasks, important tasks that needs updates consistently, it's I've seen as a good practice always say something, no, I'm doing task X and I'm that point, and someone else asks, and you think you're gonna deliver it today, and people always are humble and honest and say, yes, I do. No, I don't. And that's mainly in important tasks, async updates is very important to do it consistently. English improvement, yeah, as I said before, I think communication is forever. So I try to, I've been improving by course, by talking to people, by doing mentorship, by doing, I've been improving in many ways. And I think it's a lifestyle from now on.
Yeah.
So always being humble, not thinking it's enough, because I think I'm so far off it's enough. And yeah, and over communicate. It's good for remote. Sometimes people don't say nothing, but don't understand nothing. But it's over communicate is also, I think, is related to clear it when you are making when you are explaining something, or when you are asking something. Over communicate is good for make sure that you are being understood and you understood the message. And visibility, it also related at async updates. It's a good practice to show for everyone that you are not lost, you are on your way. Yeah, yeah, that's my thoughts about
Yeah.
communication.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, Wellington. And there is a very important concept of communication, which is that it's not enough to be a senior developer, but you also have to look like a senior developer. Because sometimes, if you are a senior developer and you don't look like a senior developer, people will see you as a non-senior developer. So you have to go beyond as being senior. You have to look like senior. And one way to look like senior is through your communication. It's very important. Something I took me many years to realize. Took me many years. So the important
Yeah,
point.
I see most of ever senior developer, they communicate or frequently. They always are sending messages, giving stats report. They always talking to different people. Communication is one characteristic of senior developers, right?
Definitely. Definitely. And personal brand. This is very important. Developers underestimate that. They think that the job will appear all of a sudden, but it doesn't work like that. We need to do, you know, our homework on LinkedIn, and we need to have a presence on LinkedIn and to show our value as developers on LinkedIn. Regular CV refinement. So, and obviously on your CV, always tweak the CV and tailor your CV to the company. You don't want to send the same CV to all the companies, right? GitHub contributions, it's important to contribute to open source. That will help you to get better jobs. Clear narrative, repeated often. So basically, this is related to your focus, right? So what is your focus? Like you can't be a developer who is specialist in everything. Like you have to choose. Like in most Java developers, backend developers, they know about Java, they know about AWS, they know about Spring, but they don't know lots of programming languages. They don't know like the front end very well. It's okay to be very good in a certain area and to be good enough in others to solve problems, right? So the way you show yourself on LinkedIn is very important. You can't look like this developer who knows random things. You need to be specialized on things that are valuable to the market. And like the more you share your knowledge, the more you take actions to show that you are a good and reliable developer that will help you to get jobs more easily, right? So there is like many things involved, but the basis to help you get a job is to improve your LinkedIn profile. And this is something I can help you in the Challenger Developer Mentorship, for example, right? And do you have anything to add on this one, Wellington?
Yep. So regarding personal brand positioning, I'm working on that, and it's quite new for me, but I also, yeah, I also started with LinkedIn, and when I started the mentorship, I thought my LinkedIn was good. It was before new Rafael. He pointed many improvements there. Uh, Still have some improvements to do, but they, it's a nice profile. It's bringing many recruiters to me. And so LinkedIn is the most powerful tool, I think, for developers. It's the place where you connect with recruiters and companies and you find new jobs and new offers. So we need to have the LinkedIn sharpened and ready. And yeah, that's it about LinkedIn. And CV, yeah, CV, it's some people think we need to change lots of things there, but once you have a nice CV, tailor it for other companies is quite easy. It's just change the role and some keywords about the role. It's yeah, it's quite easy. It looks like difficult, but at the end it's pretty easy.
Yeah,
And yeah, GitHub contributions. I need to start mine, I confess. Yeah, yeah, I think that's it. What I think about that, and I see most the star developers. I mean, when I say star developers, the developers that have a good LinkedIn profile, a great CV, many contributions, many articles. What I see, those kind of person, it is they have a strong network. It's more easy for them find land a new job by refers.
very
Yeah,
good.
that's it. What
Thank
do
you
you
so much.
think? Makes sense?
It makes sense. Thank you so much for your insights, Wellington. And like you said, like a CV is not a complicated thing. Like nowadays, even easier with AI.
Yeah,
Like basically with one prompt, you can create a whole CV. And like Wellington said, it's only a few tweaks. You don't need to go crazy and change the whole CV. Just a few tweaks, some keywords, some key responsibilities, and that's it. Because your foundation is not your CV, it's your LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the de facto the place to find jobs, right? So there are other tools and stuff, but in the end, the foundation is LinkedIn, right? So, and the last point is about interview and career strategy. Like I said in the beginning, consistency without strategy is useless. So it's nothing. So interview and career strategy. So besides preparing for interviews, we need to do real interviews for, the real practice. And yeah, when we do interviews, we have this constant market awareness, right? And before doing the real interviews, it's important to do the mock interviews. And this is something that Wellington did a lot in the mentorship, and we can tell about his experience later. Negotiation skills. Obviously, the more you negotiate with companies, the better you get. There are some techniques you can use as well. And you don't need to wait until you need a job. You can do interviews while you have the job you want because then you know how is the market, right? So you need to know what the companies are asking in the interviews, then understand the game and you practice yourself and then you get better, right? And you have to expect to be rejected a few times, but obviously when you're rejected, learn from the mistakes, understand what happened, right? So do you have things to add here, Wellington?
I had that is actually. very nice talk. I enjoyed a lot this talk. I did many interviews and I learned a lot. And over time, we start to see a certain partner among the questions, the behaviors, and as you said, we need to practice that. You need to practice and we need to be consistent. Maybe you are lucky and got the job at the first interview, but most of the case we need to be persistent. And with persistence and practice and do interviews, we become aware of what the market is asking for. And market interviews help us a lot, especially in the mentorship, to become more confident, to become more calm during the interview. The negotiation skills, the mentorship, it's fantastic. It's another world. And if you think something doesn't work, put it on work, try it, and you will see the results. It's very, very, very nice topic. Yeah, and basically this topic is about yeah, consistent for me. I see it's about consistency, strategy. Strategy counts a lot, as you said. Without strategy, we just spinning a wheel.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, once you have consistency and you don't give up and you keep learning, always take notes about your interviews. And in a certain moment, you will start to see a certain partner among the questions, and coming, you start improving. It's the
exactly.
flow.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your insights, Wellington. And yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Let me give you a quick summary of a recap of what we talked about. So mindset is important because you need to be resilient. You need to have this humble mindset to keep growing. If you have the arrogant mindset, you won't even ask for help. So you're already blocked. So mindset is very important. Business impact over code. The companies love a developer who knows a lot about the business because the business is something that you can only learn in the company. So the developer who knows the business becomes one of the most valuable developers, right? And deep Java fundamentals, you need to know about the structures, system design, legal notation, Java, JVM, cloud providers. So those things are very important. System and architecture thinking to develop this way to deal with ambiguity and create documentations is very important as a senior developer. Production and reliability, always aim to be that senior developer who is able to solve production problems. So that the managers can rely on you to solve those complicated issues. And that's very good because you give peace of mind to your managers, right? That's important. Global communication, like make a habit to communicate clearly, personal brand and positioning, like make sure your LinkedIn is sharp and position yourself as, as someone you would like to be. So if you would like to be a backend Java developer, position yourself as a backend Java developer, right? Interview and career strategy. Do as many interviews as possible, right? And have a strategy behind the scenes so that you keep going, right? So I'm gonna ask you, Temitop, to fill this out so that you can get the mind map. Okay. So just a moment. Temitop, are you there with us? You can say yes on the chat. Are you here with us?
Yes, yes. I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I will send to you the form here. Thank you so much, Wellington, for being here and sharing your insights and talking about your ongoing participation in the Challenger Developer Mentorship. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure being here. Thank you, Rafael. Thank them, Tom.
Right.
Very good. And for you, Challenger, who is watching us on YouTube, I also will invite you to do the free career diagnosis session so that I can help you figure out what are your gaps to reach your international job and to get registered for this conversation. You can click the link on the comments of this video and you can talk to me. Okay? But book it as soon as possible because the spots are limited. My schedule is very tight. So take action now and let's discuss about your international career. Okay? That's it. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks, Wellington. Thanks, Temito. And I'll see you
All
next
right.
time.
Thank
Bye.
you. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.